Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Sunday, February 15th, 2026.
Good to be back.
I hope you've had your coffee because I've been sitting here with this stack of research for the last 2 hours. And I have to be honest with you, the world looks completely different than it did even 6 months ago.
It really does.
Usually when we sit down to do this, we're looking at a collection of trends, maybe a market correction here or a new gadget there. But today feels different.
It does feel heavier, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There is a certain weight to the material this week.
Heavier is a polite way to put it. The phrase that keeps jumping out at me from our main source isn't recession or pivot, it's extinction event.
Right.
And we aren't talking about dinosaurs. We are talking about the software tools that pretty much every modern business is built on.
That's the headline grabber, certainly. But what's unique about today's deep dives is the source material itself. We are working off of Manal Mehta's market intelligence. And this is the dispatch from this month, February 2026. For those listening who haven't encountered Mehta's work before, this isn't your standard Wall Street bank newsletter that tells you to buy low and sell high.
No, not at all. It reads more like a forensic crime scene report. It's dense. It's multidisciplinary.
Exactly. Mehta specializes in connecting dots that usually stay in separate silos. Most analysts look at tech, or they look at geopolitics, or they look at biology.
They stay in their lane.
They stay in their lane. Mehta looks at all of them simultaneously. And his thesis for early 2026 is that these silos are colliding. We have a dispatch here that draws a straight line between a bankruptcy court ruling in Puerto Rico, a petri dish full of ovarian cancer cells, and a massive silent panic happening inside the boardrooms of Silicon Valley.
It sounds like a conspiracy theory board, with the red string connecting everything, but the documentation is all here.
It is. And the mission, if you want to call it that, is to understand where value is migrating in this chaotic landscape. Because if Mehta is right, we are seeing a fundamental shift. Money, influence, and power are moving away from the middlemen. If you are just an app or just a broker in a supply chain, you are in the danger zone.
The danger zone.
Value is moving to the foundational layers, the raw materials, the biological IP, and the autonomous agents that actually do the work.
Intermediary evaporation, that's the term used in the report.
Precisely. If you are sitting in the middle, collecting a toll, 2026 is going to be a very, very bad year for you.
All right, let's stop teasing the apocalypse and actually unpack it. I want to start with the digital side of things because this affects pretty much everyone listening.
Sounds good.
Segment 1, the great SaaS extinction event.
Let's do it.
So, SaaS software as a service. This has been the golden child of the economy for 15 years. You subscribe to an app, you pay your monthly fee, you get a nice dashboard. Salesforce, Slack, HubSpot, these are the titans. But this report suggests they're the walking dead. Now, I feel like I've been hearing AI will kill software since ChatGPT came out years ago. Why is this time different? Why is the market freaking out now in February 2026?
That's the key question. And to understand the panic, you have to look at the recent carnage in the markets. We aren't seeing a general tech sell-off.
No, it's not like the whole NASDAQ is down 30% or something.
Not at all. We are seeing a very specific targeted assassination evaluation in sectors like wealth management software, B2B data services, and legal tech.
Okay, so very specific niches.
Very specific. And these are companies that are profitable, they have millions of users, they look healthy on paper, but the market is repricing them as if they're going to zero.
Is that fair? Or is it just market hysteria?
Well, Mehta's argument is that it's actually a rational response to a technological shift. We have moved from the era of the chatbot to the era of the agent, and that distinction matters.
Okay, define that for me, because to my mom, and honestly to a lot of people, it's all just the computer talking to me. What is the functional difference between a chatbot and an agent?
It's a great question. Think of a chatbot like a really, really smart librarian. You go to the desk, you ask a complex question.
Find me all the research on 14th century Italian poetry.
Exactly. And the librarian gives you a perfect answer. Maybe they even write a summary for you. It's an incredible research tool. But then what happens?
I take the summary, I go back to my desk, and I do the work. I write the email, or I update the spreadsheet, or I put it into my presentation.
Exactly. The human is still the integrator. You are still the one clicking the buttons in your software.
Yeah.
An agent is different. An agent isn't a librarian. It's a highly skilled intern, or maybe even a senior manager. You don't ask it a question, you give it a goal.
A goal.
You say, reconcile my expenses for January, categorize them according to the company's T&E policy, and submit the report for approval. The agent doesn't tell you how to do it. It logs into your bank. It logs into your accounting software. It matches the receipts. It flags the errors, and it hits submit.
So the human is completely out of the loop.
The human is out of the workflow, and that is the death knell for traditional SaaS pricing models.
Walk me through that economic collapse. Why is doing the work bad for the software company? I mean, isn't that what their software is for?
You would think so, but think about how SaaS companies make money. They charge for seats.
Right. Per user, per month.
They charge you $30 or $50 or $100 a month for you, a human, to log in and stare at their beautiful user interface. They spend millions and millions of dollars designing those dashboards, making the buttons satisfying to click, creating sticky workflows.
Getting you hooked on their system.
Their entire moat, their competitive advantage, is that you know how to use their tool and you like the interface. It's familiar.
Right. Ease of use was always the selling point. It's intuitive.
But if I have an AI agent like Anthropic's Claude Cowork platform, which is mentioned in the report, that agent doesn't care about ease of use. It doesn't need a pretty dashboard. It just needs an API.
An API. So a way for computers to talk to each other directly.
It talks directly to the database. It doesn't need the buttons or the drop-down menus.
Yeah.
So the shiny app, the thing the company spent all that money on,
it just becomes a bucket for data, a storage locker.
it becomes a dumb utility. It becomes a digital filing cabinet. And here's the problem. You can't charge a premium subscription fee for a filing cabinet. You charge pennies for storage.
Wow.
If the user interface is no longer needed because there is no user, the value of that company collapses.
That is a brutal realization. It's like being a luxury car manufacturer and suddenly everyone teleports.
That's a great analogy.
Nobody needs the leather seats or the fancy dashboard anymore. They just need to get from point A to point B.
That's a perfect analogy. And the report highlights a specific move by OpenAI that really signaled this shift to the insiders. They hired Peter Steinberger.
I saw that name. He's the founder of OpenClaw. Now, I have to ask, OpenClaw sounds like a villain's weapon in a Bond movie. What is it?
It does sound ominous. But OpenClaw was or is a sandbox for agents. It was an open source project that democratized how AI agents interact with other applications.
So it's like a universal remote for AI.
That's a good way to put it. It was the glue that allowed an AI to press buttons in other apps, to navigate the web, to act like a human user without needing a special API for every single program. It could just look at the screen and click, just like you would.
So it basically turns any app into something an AI can control.
Yes. And by bringing Steinberger in-house, OpenAI is signaling that they want to own the execution. They don't want to just be the brain. They want to be the hands.
The hands that do the work.
And that takes us to the core problem for SaaS.
This leads us to the middleman problem. If the AI can go direct to the data, the app layer evaporates. But I have to play devil's advocate here.
Please.
Corporate IT is notoriously slow. Big companies have compliance departments. They have rules. They aren't just going to let AI agents run wild in their bank accounts tomorrow, right? There has to be some kind of governance.
You would think so. Logic would dictate that. But human nature dictates something else entirely. And that brings us to the most ironic and frankly hilarious story in the Dispatch.
Oh, I loved this.
The KPMG Australia scandal.
This is the definition of irony. Please, lay it out.
It really is.
Yeah.
So KPMG is one of the big four accounting firms. They are the people you hire to ensure you are following the rules. They are the auditors, the gatekeepers of compliance.
They're referees.
The referees. And yet, a partner and over 24 staff members were caught and fined for using AI to cheat.
Cheating is bad enough, but what were they cheating on? This is the best part.
They were cheating on an internal exam
Yes.
about how to use AI responsibly.
You cannot make that up. They used the unauthorized AI tool to pass the test about not using unauthorized AI tools.
It is the perfect encapsulation of the moment we are in. But pause and think about the implication. These are auditors. These are the gatekeepers. If they are breaking the rules to use these agents because the efficiency gain is so high.
What chance does a normal company have of stopping it?
Exactly. What chance does the marketing department or the sales team have?
It's the path of least resistance. If the AI does my weekly report in 5 minutes and it takes me 5 hours, I'm using the AI. I don't care what the employee handbook says. I'll just copy and paste the output.
Precisely. The productivity gains are irresistible. It's like water. It will find the cracks. So Mehta's trade here is based on that reality.
Okay, so what's the play?
You bet against the single-function SaaS companies, the companies that just do automated marketing. or just do simple expense reporting, because the agent can do that as a side hustle. It's not a whole business anymore. It's a feature of the agent.
And on the flip side, what do you buy?
You go long the infrastructure. You buy the arms dealers, Microsoft, Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, the ones building the foundational models.
The brain.
The brains. And, crucially, you buy the janitors.
The janitors, what do you mean?
The cybersecurity and data governance firms. Because if everyone in your company is secretly using AI agents to do their work, like those folks at KPMG, you have a massive data leak problem. You have a compliance nightmare.
Shadow AI.
Shadow AI. Exactly. Your company's proprietary data is being fed into these models without any oversight. The companies that clean up that mess, that identify shadow AI usage, secure it, create audit trails, they are going to be printing money.
So short the wrapper, long the model, and long the cleanup crew. That makes a lot of sense.
It's a complete repricing of the tech stack from top to bottom.
Okay, let's pivot. We've talked about the digital war for workflows. Now let's talk about the actual physical trade war. This feels like a good transition. Segment 2, the kinetic phase. We hear the word decoupling regarding the U.S. and China constantly. It's almost a buzzword at this point. But the report says we are moving past decoupling into something much more aggressive. Kinetic usually implies movement, or in military terms, shooting.
We aren't shooting missiles yet, thankfully, but we are shooting economic missiles that have immediate destructive effects on physical businesses. The centerpiece here is the Biosecure Act.
Break this down for me. The Pentagon got involved with a biotech company called WuXi AppTech. I know they are a big company, but why is the Department of Defense involved in biotech? That seems like an odd pairing.
It does, until you understand what WuXi AppTech is. They aren't just a biotech company. They are a massive CRO, a contract research organization.
What does that mean in plain English?
Think of them as the engine room for the global pharmaceutical industry. If you are a U.S. pharma giant like Pfizer, or even a small biotech startup with a promising new molecule, you probably hire WuXi.
For what?
To run your clinical trials, to test your compounds for toxicity, or even to manufacture the actual drugs at scale. They are the factory floor of modern medicine.
So they're deeply, deeply embedded in the U.S. healthcare system.
Deeply woven into the very fabric of it. But the Pentagon just added them to the 1260H list. That is the official list of Chinese military companies operating in the U.S.
That sounds definitive. You don't want to be on that list.
No, you don't. It's a blacklist. It essentially alleges that the company has ties to the People's Liberation Army. And being on that list triggered the implementation of the Biosecure Act, which passed back in December 2025.
And this act isn't a suggestion.
No. It mandates a 5-year wind down. It says that by 2031, no federal contracts and effectively no U.S. business can touch WuXi.
5 years sounds like a long time, but in the drug development world,
It's nothing.
it's a blink of an eye. You can't just move a drug factory overnight. FDA approvals take years. You have to validate new facilities, new supply chains.
Exactly. That's why the entire pharma and biotech supply chain is panicking. It's a forced divorce, and they have to move out of the house immediately, but all their stuff is still there.
But the timing of this, that's what the report finds so significant.
Yes. The timing is what Mehta points out is critical. This designation happened just weeks before a planned summit between Trump and Xi.
Usually before a big summit, you play nice, you offer some carrots to get a deal, you don't, punch them in the nose right before you shake their hand.
Not anymore. This proves that security policy is now fully decoupled from diplomacy. The U.S. effectively said, we are going to crush this major Chinese company, and then showed up to shake hands for the photo op.
It's sending a message.
It signals that these security issues, biotech, data, AI, semiconductors, are non-negotiable. They will not be bargained away for better soybean tariffs or other trade concessions.
And China isn't just taking this sitting down. The report mentions a scramble for rare earths in Japan. This is the other side of the coin, isn't it?
This is the retaliation. If the U.S. attacks the biotech supply chain, China squeezes the raw materials supply chain. And Japan's the canary in the coal mine here.
Why Japan?
Because they are highly industrialized, they are a U.S. ally, and they are incredibly dependent on China for these material. Japanese industry has signaled that they only have about 60 to 180 days of rare earth stockpiles left.
Just a couple months.
Couple of months, and we are talking about elements like dysprosium and neodymium.
I failed chemistry, so help me out. What do we need those for? For these common?
They're not common, and you need them for everything high-tech. We're talking about the high-end magnets in EV motors, in wind turbines, in the guidance systems for missiles and fighter jets.
So defense and green energy.
The two pillars of modern industry. If China turns off the tap, and they control the vast majority of Japanese industry, grinds to a halt in 6 months, it's a chokehold.
And that's why the report mentions the U.S. Department of Defense is suddenly funding mines.
Yes, it's a direct reaction.
Yeah.
The DoD is fast-tracking funding for MP Materials in California and Linus, an Australian company with operations in Malaysia. It's a desperate race to build a new, non-Chinese supply chain before the old one gets cut off.
It's not about efficiency anymore.
No.
It's not about who can do it cheapest.
It's about survival. It's about resilience. The entire logic of globalization is being inverted in real time.
Speaking of survival and Japan, we have to talk about the Takechi trap. This sounds like a thriller novel title, but it's actually about economic suicide.
It really is a tragedy of timing and policy.
Yeah.
So Sane Takaichi won a landslide victory as Prime Minister of Japan.
Right.
And she ran on a platform that was very populist and very hawkish.
Mm-hmm.
She promised two main things. One, she was going to stand up to China regarding Taiwan, be much more assertive.
Okay. A strong national security stance.
And two, she was going to give the Japanese people a massive tax cut to stimulate the economy. 5 trillion yen.
On paper, that sounds like a winning platform. People like tax cuts, and they like strong leaders.
Until reality hits. Her hawkish rhetoric on Taiwan angered Beijing, and Beijing didn't just send a stern letter to the UN, they weaponized their tourists.
Weaponized tourists? I've never heard that phrase before.
In December 2025, Chinese tourist arrivals to Japan plummeted by 45%.
Wow. And I think people in the U.S. might underestimate that. But in Japan, Chinese tourism is a massive, massive chunk of the retail economy.
It's huge. We're talking about billions of dollars of spending just vanishing from the Ginza in Tokyo and the stores in Osaka. It crushed the luxury retail sector, the department stores, almost immediately.
Okay, so that's the geopolitical poison pill. What about the economic one?
Well, here is the trap. Takaichi is also pushing this 5 trillion yen tax cut to stimulate the economy.
So she is printing money, or at least borrowing it, to fund a tax cut which usually causes inflation and weakens the currency.
Exactly. The yen is cratering because of the spending. The currency is in free fall. Normally, if your currency is crashing, the central bank of Japan would raise interest rates to prop it up.
Right, make it more attractive to hold yen.
But they can't.
Yeah.
They're stuck.
Why not?
Because the businesses, the department stores, the hotels, the restaurants are already dying from the lack of tourists. If you raise rates, you bankrupt them. You make their loans more expensive right when their revenue collapsed. They would default in waves.
So if they raise rates, the economy dies.
And if they don't raise rates?
The yen dies, the currency collapses, imports become too expensive, and the cost of living skyrockets for regular people.
That is the Takaichi trap. She walked herself into a corner where every single option leads to disaster.
That is a perfect storm.
And the trade there, according to Mehta, is brutal but simple. You short at the yen and you short the Japanese retailers. It's a perfect storm of bad policy timing and geopolitical retaliation.
It really highlights how interconnected this all is. A speech about Taiwan crashes a department store stock in Tokyo.
That's the world of 2026. Everything is kinetic. Every action has an immediate and often brutal reaction.
All right, let's move from these huge macro-level storms to some of the individual boats caught in the waves. Segment 3, the contrarian trades. The forensic watch list? I always love these because they feel like little detective stories.
They are. These are special situations. They aren't about long-term growth or, a 10-year vision. They're about specific events with a deadline.
And first up, a company called MBIA. Now, this is a bond insurer. In normal times, this is the most boring business on earth. But the notes say their entire existence depends on this coming Friday.
Friday, February 20, 2026. Mark your calendar. It's a binary event for this company.
What's happened?
MBIA essentially insures the bonds of Prepay, the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority.
Right. Puerto Rico's power grid has been a disaster for years. They've been in bankruptcy for what feels like a decade.
It has been a decade. It's been a long, painful process. But we are finally at the end of the road. On Friday, 2 massive things happen. First, the Supreme Court is ruling on a case Trump v. Sawyer that challenges the power of the oversight board running the island. That's a big deal for the island's sovereignty.
But not for the money, necessarily.
Right. For the money, the second thing is what matters. There is a status hearing regarding the clawback.
The clawback sounds like a horror movie.
For the power authority, it might be. Bondholders, including MBIA, are alleging that prepay has been hiding revenue, specifically $3.7 billion.
Hiding almost $4 billion. How do you hide that much money? That's not loose change in the couch cushions.
The allegation is that they artificially lowered their revenue projections to argue they couldn't pay the debt. They cried poor to the bankruptcy judge. The bondholders have done a forensic analysis of power usage, billing, all of it, and they say, no, the money is there, you just don't want to admit it.
So they're going to present this evidence to the judge on Friday.
Exactly. If the court agrees, the recovery rate on those bonds skyrockets. MBIA stock, which has been beaten down to almost nothing, would explode upwards, potentially double, triple, or more in a single day.
And if they lose?
The stock likely goes to zero. It's a binary event. This isn't investing. It's litigation arbitrage. You aren't betting on the business model. You're betting on the judge.
High-stakes poker in a courtroom. I like it. Let's look at the next one. The zombie biotech. Sangamo Therapeutics. Ticker SGMO. The notes say the market cap is under $100 million. That is tiny for a biotech company. That's a rounding error for Pfizer.
This is a classic cigar butt investment, to use a Buffett term. There's one last puff left in it, maybe?
So what's the story here?
Sangamo's an old company. They were pioneers in zinc finger editing, which was a precursor to CRISPR. They were doing gene editing long before it was cool.
But they never quite made it.
They burned a lot of cash, disappointed a lot of investors, and diluted their stock into oblivion. The market has left them for dead. Wall Street assumes bankruptcy is imminent.
But they have a drug. They have an asset.
They have a good drug. That's the key. It's a gene therapy for a rare genetic condition called Fabry disease. The drug is called ST920, and the clinical data is stellar, actually better than the competition that's already on the market.
So if the drug works and it's better, what's the problem?
The problem is Sangamo's broke. They don't have the cash to launch the drug. They can't afford the sales force, the marketing, the manufacturing scale-up. They have a Ferrari in the garage, but no money for gas.
So it's a staring contest.
Exactly. They need a partner. They need a big pharma company, say a Pfizer or a Novartis, to swoop in and say, we see the value here. We'll take that asset off your hands.
And in that case?
The upfront payment alone could be double or triple Sangamo's entire current stock price.
So you buy it for 50 cents on the dollar, and tomorrow it's worth $2 because of a deal.
Or no deal comes, they run out of cash in 6 months, and the stock goes to zero. Again, it's asymmetric. The upside is huge. The downside is, well, total. It's a lottery ticket based on a single catalyst.
I'm sensing a theme of all or nothing in this report. Let's look at one more, Angie Inc., the home services company.
Right. This is more of a traditional turnaround play, but with the same kind of asymmetry.
The stock collapsed 25% after their last earnings report. The turnaround they promised is delayed.
It is. The market hates it. They've punished the stock severely. But Mehta's point is that it's now trading at liquidation levels.
What does that mean?
It's trading at about 5 times free cash flow. That's incredibly cheap. It means if they just stop the bleeding, if they just stabilize the business and don't even grow, the stock will re-rate violently upwards.
So the market has priced in a death spiral.
Yes. And if that death spiral doesn't happen, if they just manage to tread water, you could see a huge return. The bar is incredibly low.
Okay, so these are all high-risk, high-reward plays based on specific events. But there was another one tucked in the notes that's both a trade and a cultural observation.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Bridgerton Body Wash. This was in the report, and I feel like it says something deeper about the media landscape in 2026.
It does. We are seeing the Spaceballs phase of streaming.
Bridgerton the T-shirt, Bridgerton the lunchbox.
Bridgerton the flamethrower. Well, Bridgerton the body wash. Look, the reality is that streaming growth is dead. Everyone has Netflix. Everyone has Disney Plus there. The customer acquisition phase is over.
The market is saturated.
Completely saturated. The growth curve has flattened. Now, these studios are desperate for margin. They need to squeeze more money out of existing IP.
And selling soap has better margins than streaming video.
Much better. Think about it. You pay a subscription fee for Netflix, and you share that password with your mom and your ex-boyfriend and your cousin. 4 people watching for 1 fee.
All right.
But you don't share a bottle of body wash. It's a physical, consumable product with a high margin, sold in partnership with a CPG giant. We are seeing a massive shift of media IP becoming retail product. If you can't get more subscribers, you have to turn your viewers into shoppers.
It's a little dystopian, washing yourself with your favorite TV show character's essence. I don't know, it's weird. But I get the economics. It's survival.
It's survival.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that theme of extinction. The old model, just getting subscribers, is extinct.
Yeah.
They have to evolve into retailers or die.
Okay, stick a pin in the body wash. I want to get to the part of the report that actually blew my mind. I mean, truly. Segment 4, Frontier Science.
Yes.
The source calls this the synthesis engine. We are talking about biological breakthroughs that sound like they are straight out of science fiction. Let's start with cancer.
Specifically, ovarian cancer. This is a brutal disease, often detected late and very hard to treat once it spreads. The breakthrough here concerns something called ascites fluid.
That's the fluid that builds up in the abdomen of cancer patients, right? I thought that was just a symptom, a side effect. Doctors usually just drain it and throw it away to make the patient more comfortable.
Exactly. For decades, we thought it was just waste. Garbage, a byproduct of the disease. But this new research from a lab at, I believe, MD Anderson says, wait, this isn't waste. This is a command center.
A command center? How can fluid be a command center?
The fluid is full of proteins and signaling molecules, specifically one called TGM2, that are actively talking to the cancer cells. It acts like a field general, giving orders.
What kind of orders?
It tells the cancer cells to cluster together to form more aggressive tumors. It tells them to change their metabolism to better survive. It tells them to attach to other organs. And most importantly, it tells them how to resist chemotherapy.
So the fluid is terraforming the environment to help the cancer win the war.
Terraforming is the perfect word. The cancer creates a bad neighborhood, the fluid, that then radicalizes the cells living in it. It's a vicious feedback loop.
So what's the implication for treatment? This is incredible.
It changes the target completely. We've been trying to kill the cell. We've been developing drugs to attack the cancer cell directly. But if the environment, the fluid, is what's making the cell aggressive, maybe we need to treat the fluid.
Clean up the neighborhood.
Clean up the neighborhood. If you can develop a drug that inhibits that TGM2 protein, you might stop the metastasis. You cut off the command signal from the general. The cells are still there, but they don't get the orders to invade.
That is a total paradigm shift. It's investigating the crime scene, not just the criminal.
Precisely.
And speaking of changing paradigms, let's talk about the heart, the field of cardio-oncology. I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's a huge and growing field because of a tragic problem. One of our best, most effective cancer drugs is a chemotherapy agent called doxorubicin. They call it the Red Devil.
The Red Devil.
It kills cancer very effectively, but it is notoriously toxic to the heart. It destroys heart muscle cells by messing with how they handle calcium and by activating a stress pathway called P53.
So you beat the cancer, but you die of heart failure 5 years later? That's a terrible trade-off.
It is a devastating one. But this new approach uses CRISPR. Now, usually when we say CRISPR, people think of genetic scissors. You go in, you cut the DNA to fix a typo.
Right. Snip, snip, fix the gene.
This is different. This is CRISPR. The A stands for activation. Doesn't cut anything. It acts like a volume knob for your genes.
A volume knob for your genes? What do you mean?
Yes. The idea is before you get your chemotherapy infusion, you get a shot of this CRISPR system. It goes to your heart cells, and it turns up the volume on protective genes that make proteins like SERCA2, which helps with calcium handling, or MDM2, which blocks that P53 stress pathway.
So it puts a bulletproof vest on your heart cells.
A temporary shield. That's the perfect way to describe it.
So you wear the vest, you take the chemo bounces off your heart but still goes and kills the cancer elsewhere. Then, after a few weeks, the CRISPR effect wears off and your heart goes back to normal.
Exactly. It's a gene prophylactic, a preventative gene therapy.
That feels like a massive market.
Mehta estimates it as a $10 billion plus market because every single patient taking doxorubicin or a similar drug would take this. Why wouldn't you? It de-risks the cure. It makes the poison safer.
Okay, last science topic. And this one is the weirdest. I had to read this section twice. Zombie DNA in the brain.
This connects football, concussions, and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating and frankly terrifying theory.
So we know hitting your head is bad. We know it leads to CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, but we never really understood the molecular mechanism. Why does a hit in 2026 cause dementia in 2046? What is happening in that 20-year gap?
Right. What's the slow-burning fuse?
And the answer is ancient viruses in our own DNA.
Yes. This sounds like science fiction, but it's real biology. Our DNA is not 100% human. About 8% of our genome is made up of ancient retroviruses that infected our primate ancestors millions of years ago and got stuck.
You're just junk DNA.
We call them transposable elements or line 1 elements. And usually, They are asleep. They are genetic fossils buried in our code, silenced by layers of epigenetic protection.
But the brain injury wakes them up.
The trauma, the physical shock of the concussion, breaks the suppression mechanism that keeps them asleep. The zombie DNA wakes up and starts behaving like a virus again. It starts making copies of itself and jumping around in the genome of your brain cells.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. Your own DNA is attacking you.
It is, and it triggers the immune system. Your body's defense system sees virus inside its own brain cells and attacks. That chronic low-grade inflammation year after year is what rots the brain and leads to the neurodegeneration we see in CTE and maybe even some forms of Alzheimer's.
So the blow to the head pulls the trigger, but the zombie DNA is the bullet that kills you slowly over decades.
A very good summary. But here is the aha moment. If the mechanism is a retrovirus-like replication, we already have drugs for that.
You mean HIV drugs?
Exactly. Reverse transcriptase inhibitors. The same class of drugs that keep HIV suppressed could hypothetically stop this zombie DNA from replicating immediately after a concussion.
So, the idea is a football player gets a concussion on Sunday, they take a pill on Monday.
And you potentially prevent the onset of dementia 20 years later.
That would change everything. For sports, for the military, for car accidents.
It's repurposing an existing safe tool for a massive new problem. It's an incredible insight.
It's fascinating how the silos are breaking down. Oncology, cardiology, virology, neurology, it's all one big interconnected system now.
That's the nature of frontier science in 2026. The easy problems are solved. The hard problems require convergence and multidisciplinary thinking.
Let's zoom out for our final segment, Segment 5, the Global Intelligence Log. Big picture, macro trends. We touched on the Japanese economy, but let's look at the U.S., the great auto reversal.
This is a story of capital destruction on a massive scale. In 2025, the global auto industry took a $65 billion write-down.
$65 billion? Why?
Because they bet the farm on EVs. They spent hundreds of billions building new factories, developing new platforms, retooling their entire businesses for an all-electric future.
A future that didn't arrive as planned.
The policy landscape shifted dramatically. The Trump administration rolled back the federal EV credits, the stringent emissions mandates disappeared, and it turns out, without those subsidies and mandates, a lot of consumers don't want a pure EV.
So Ford, GM, Stellantis, they built factories for cars nobody is buying.
Not in the numbers they expected, no. And now they are frantically pivoting back. The report forecasts that pure-play EV market share in the U.S. is going to drop to just 5%. They are rushing to bring back hybrids. They're even promoting V8s again.
It's a huge reminder that linear progress isn't guaranteed. Everyone thought 100% EV adoption was an inevitable straight line. It wasn't.
Politics and consumer preference get a vote. And right now, the vote is for flexibility and affordability, not electric only.
Okay, let's talk about farming. The demographic statistic here is just shocking.
It's a cliff, a demographic cliff. There are now more farmers over the age of 75 than under the age of 35 in the United States.
Wow. Think about that for a second. That is completely unsustainable.
It is. And you couple that with the economics, farm bankruptcies are up 46%.
Yeah.
It paints a grim picture. The kids don't want the farm. It's a hard life. The debt is crushing. And they see more opportunity moving to the city to work in tech.
Or maybe work for an AI agent now.
Or work for an AI agent, exactly.
So what happens to the land? Who is going to grow the food?
Consolidation. Massive corporate agriculture is swallowing family farms whole. We are moving toward a world where food production is entirely industrialized and controlled by a handful of large corporations. The era of the family farm is effectively ending in this cycle.
It seems like consolidation is the word of the day. SaaS is consolidating into AI agents. Farms are consolidating into giant corporations.
The theme of the year, efficiency and scale, are eating everything.
And what about the people running these corporations, the CEO turn?
Another record. Record turnover in 2025. 1 in 9 CEOs of major companies was replaced. But the interesting part isn't just the number, it's the profile of the new bosses.
They are younger.
Younger, yes. The average age dropped from 56 to 54. But crucially, 80% of them are first-time CEOs. They've never had the top job before.
Why the rookie fever? You'd think in a chaotic time you'd want a steady, experienced hand.
Because boards are panicked. They see the AI disruption, they see the geopolitical chaos, they see the trade wars, and they think The old playbook doesn't work anymore.
They want a digital native.
They want someone who understands the new tools. They're willing to trade 20 years of P&L experience for an intuitive grasp of how agentic AI is going to change their business. They're prioritizing adaptability over experience.
It's a glass cliff for the digital age. Here, take the wheel. The road is on fire. Good luck.
Pretty much. But it also means we're going to see a lot of volatility. Inexperienced hands on the wheel during a storm usually leads to a lot of swerving.
Okay, we've covered a lot. The SaaS Extinction, the Biosecure Act, the Takeichi Trap, zombie DNA, the death of the family farm. It feels heavy.
It is heavy, but it's also clarifying. We are in a moment of rapid obsolescence. If you are holding on to the old models, whether that's a standalone SaaS app, an EV-only strategy in a non-subsidized market, or a bond dependent on a bankrupt power authority, you are at extreme risk.
So the winners are the ones controlling the foundation, the AI models, the raw materials like rare earths, the biological IP.
Exactly. Value is moving to the base of the stack, away from the interface and toward the engine.
Which brings us to our final thought, the outro. And a little mystery involving a company we usually associate with spies and defense contracts. Palantir.
The Palantir mystery. This is a perfect way to end because it shows just how weird and unpredictable the future is getting.
So what's the breadcrumb here?
Mehta found a hidden grant in the NIDDK database. That's the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases.
Not exactly where you expect to find Palantir Technologies, the defense contractor.
No, you expect to find them in the Pentagon budget or a CIA contract. But this is a $2.1 million grant to a research group at Stanford University, partnering with Palantir.
To do what?
To create plant-derived heme iron via microbial fermentation.
Wait, Palantir, the company that helps the CIA track terrorists, is making fake meat iron, like for Impossible Burgers.
They are making a biological product, heme iron, which is what gives meat its bloody taste, but made by microbes in a vat.
Why? I mean, why on earth would a spy tech data company be doing that?
That is the $2.1 million question. But the implication is massive. It suggests Palantir isn't just analyzing data anymore. They're using their AI and their data platforms to invent physical products. They are securing patents in biotech.
They are crossing the chasm from bits to atoms, from the digital to the physical.
And if a software data company can successfully pivot to becoming a biotech manufacturer, then the SaaS extinction we talked about at the beginning might not be an extinction for everyone. It might just be an evolution for those who are smart enough to adapt.
The ultimate pivot, from spying to supplements.
It shows that in 2026, you can't categorize companies or risks by the old labels. Everything is converging. The software is becoming biology, and the biology is being treated with software.
Well, that is a lot to chew on. From the death of apps to the birth of zombie DNA defenses, as always, the world is weirder and more complex than the headlines suggest.
And that's why we dive deep.
Exactly. Thank you for listening. Look at your own stack. Are you a utility or do you own the workflow? We'll see you in the next deep dive.